Thanks for tuning in to the Old Dirty Basement. On this week's episode, we're covering the Piggy Palace killer, Willie Pickton.
Robert Willie Pickton.
Oh yeah.
The kid that's the kid born with basically nothing to lose and yet nothing to gain.
Yeah.
Just born in a terrible childhood, terrible adolescence, terrible young adulthood.
Yeah. Well, this week we're Mattless near Seattle. Not quite Seattle, but no Matt in the house tonight. So it's just Zap and I. But hey, we'll do our best, and we hope you enjoy this one. Speaking of which, if you are, leave that 5-star rating on Spotify. On Apple, you can leave a written review. And sit back, relax, and enjoy the Piggy Palace Killer.
This is the Old Dirty Basement, home to debauchery, madness, murder, and mayhem. A terror-filled train ride deep into the depths of the devil's den.
With a little bit of humor,
History, and copious consciousness.
I'm your announcer, Shallow Throat. Your hosts are Dave, Matt, and Zap. I love you, Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right.
hey, this is Dave,
Matt and Zap.
And welcome to the Old Dirty Basement.
where every week we cover a true crime.
Murder,
Or compelling story.
So sit back.
relax.
And comprehend. Hey everybody, good evening. This is Zap standing in for Matt on today's introduction. Alas, Matt is not able to join us today.
Yeah, well, I guess we got to say hello, hello, hello.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, Matt couldn't make it. He had a surprise event come up, so we definitely wanted to pound one out here for you. So I guess that sounds a little dirty, but
Yeah, well, that's where we are.
yeah. Well, this is a dirty episode, I think.
As chance would have it, it is. Now, if I'm not mistaken, before we get started, we have a correction to address.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Mailbag item from our boy Memphis Neil. So in our last story, we covered the Column Seal Megalith Park. Is that how you say that? Column Seal? Because it's been a little while.
I'm sorry, Columcial.
Columcial in Bangor, PA.
Yep.
And I guess during the podcast, one of us referenced it being Northumberland County.
That would be me.
No, was it you? I don't know if it was you, me, or Matt.
It was me.
Right. Well, it sounds like it was what? Northampton County.
Northampton County.
Northampton County. Very close, but Memphis Neil lives currently not far at all from that location. So when he was listening back, he was like, hey, wait a minute. Bangor is in this county. So at any rate, corrected and no big deal.
Yeah, thanks so much, Neil.
Yeah.
My apologies to anyone who was out there looking for Columcial Megalith Park in Northumberland County and not finding it, because you wouldn't have found it.
You might end up in Sunbury.
Yeah.
Or somewhere like that.
Home of Wise Markets.
Yes. Is that their headquarters?
Oh, yeah.
You're right. Yeah, Sunbury. Is that right across from Ceilings Grove, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Did you ever try that barbecue place up there? Skeeters?
I know exactly the one you're talking about. It's up on the hill.
Right at the intersection.
Yep. I've passed it dozens of times, never stopped.
Never checked. Okay. I wonder if they sell pork there. Pork barbecue.
Speaking of pork, I like the segue. I like what you did there. I like your style. I like your moves.
Yeah.
So today we will be talking about a certain pig farmer. Goes by the handle of Robert Willie Pickton. So Robert, born on October 24th, 1949, to Leonard and Louise Pickton, two pig farmers in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. That's Canada.
Yes.
Yes. So we have been in the stranger Pennsylvania, but we've moved north, the great white north, up to Canada. Oh, Canada.
Yeah, people might be confused because we've been stuck in the stranger Pennsylvania, but not today.
Today, yeah, we had to take it. We took a vacation today.
And this is Western Canada, right?
Wherever the hell Vancouver is.
Yeah, I believe it's on the west coast up there by Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go. And that shows you how much I know about Canada.
We're gonna find out today, though.
We're gonna find something out about some pig farmers out there.
Yep.
So, Robert Pickton, except for the beatings resulting from his misbehavior, Robert's father had no time or interest in raising Robert and his younger brother David. Now, that task was left to Robert's mother, a tough mother who placed more value on the boys' work on the farm than she did on her own, or I should say on their own livelihoods. This started at a very, very early age for both boys. Now, school was of little to no importance to Robert's mother. Not when there's a pig farm to run, right?
Right.
Robert's educational difficulties became certainly evident when he failed second grade and was subsequently put into remedial classes in special ed. And as if his struggles with learning weren't bad enough, he was tormented regularly, I mean daily, by his classmates and peers. This was a result of him consistently being sent to school, stinking of manure and wearing filthy clothes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a thing. I guess we talked about this before we started recording. I didn't know anybody that worked on a farm growing up or anything like that, going to school in more of an urban setting.
Right.
Kids coming to school who are working the farm while they're not at school. Maybe that's something normal, but you would think you would still have hygiene.
You would think. So I was talking the other night about this, and there's a thing that happens. Now, I think I've mentioned this before. I go to the farm show, Pennsylvania Farm Show, every year without fail. I mean, to me, the farm show is like Christmas. I don't miss it.
Right.
I think over the course of time, when you work on a farm or you work in any environment like that, and I'm talking like the stinky, like a chicken farm, or in this case, like a pig farm, like the extra stinky parts of farming. It just becomes so ingrained in your person. It's like if you, you know what? Here's a great example. It's like if you smoke in your house.
You're desensitized to it.
Well, and not just that, but also, I remember growing up, you smoked in the house. So all of the clothes, everything
smells like smoke.
Smelled like smoke. If you work at a gas station, you're going to come home and your dirty clothes go into wherever they go. Your house, you're going to eventually keep on smelling that gas.
Right.
Same thing, man. It's just that same thing. And yeah, I think you're right. Like you ultimately become desensitized to it. So, well, I don't smell it.
What smell? It's just normal.
Yeah, I just took a bath a week ago. What do you mean?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It also didn't help. I had written down here that as a child, he had a speech impediment. And when he didn't speak much, he's a very quiet kid. But when he did speak, it was like really fast and with the speech impediment. So right away, he's a target for bullying. He's stinky. He's got those issues going on, and how kids are ruthless.
Well, sure. I mean, this kid's nickname, and his little brother, when they were coming up in school, they called him Stinky Piggy.
Stinky Piggy. That's horrible. Yeah,
like the stereotype or whatever that was done in Peanuts, the Charlie Brown.
Oh yeah.
So there's Pigpen, always walking around, just a cloud of dirt and filth and terribleness, always following that kid. I mean, I got to believe this is the same thing, quite literally. I mean, with a name like Stinky Piggy and living on a pig farm. Right.
And also it was said that his mother, very wispy hair, thin hair, and facial hair, like a goatee almost. That much facial hair.
That's a goatee, not a pig tee.
No, not a pig tee, goatee.
Got it.
But the mother and father would dress very much alike. Like she would dress almost like the father with jeans on and flannels and stuff. And she was a handsome woman. She was a handsome woman. I think they were like 16 years apart, the parents too. Like
Dang.
She was 16 years, he was 16 years her senior, I guess you would say. But the neighbors and people that knew him would say you could always tell who was who though, because she had a very high pitched, like annoying almost voice. Yeah. So if you'd hear her yelling at the kids or whoever, you knew who it was.
That you're saying that's how if you weren't sure who was who,
you could tell by the voice. Yeah.
Jesus. Oh my God.
So this kid's behind the 8-ball. Not to mention he was born with the umbilical cord around his neck. And supposedly that can cause, brain damage and stuff. Of course, if you lose oxygen, and these brain injuries at a young age can lead to problems later in life.
Oh my God. Yeah, of course.
But who's to say for sure? But this is not a good start.
No, man, this kid's off to a real terrible start. And as I'd mentioned, so his father, his biological didn't bother.
Shaq.
That's right. In this case, the only time his father stepped in was beatings. And I mean like savage beatings. So when these savage beatings would happen, and I think you had had one that you were talking about earlier, I'd love to hear more about.
Oh, about the truck?
Yeah, about the truck.
Yeah, so when he had a story that when he was 3 years old, that he was in the truck with his father, and they had pigs in the back. I guess they were transporting these pigs. The father got out of the car or out of the truck for whatever reason, and the 3-year-old Willie put it in gear. It wrecked into a tree and totaled the truck. The father gave him a beating, just a ridiculous beating that he'll never forget. Most parents would go, it's my fault for leaving a 3-year-old unattended up front in a car running. But they looked at it like it was his fault.
Sure.
So he took the beating, and there again, who's to say he didn't get a head injury from that, or,
Sure.
Like I said, there's always those people that want to connect these traumas that happen as you're growing up. But.
There's always going to be, and I mean always going to be some kind of triggering mechanism, right?
Right.
Oh, so speaking of those beatings, when his dad, it was actually discovered that when his, when he knew he had it coming.
Right.
And the kid's like running away from his dad, like, oh my God, that guy's going to beat the shit out of me. He would often hide in the slaughtered carcasses of the pigs. So, you field strip, you do whatever these pigs, you're not, this is their business. So it's more than just field stripping. So they would gut these pigs and just have these carcasses. This kid would hide inside the empty, gutted carcasses like
Luke's
like
Luke,
Han Solo in a tauntaun.
Yeah, was that Han or Luke? It was
all right. So Han sliced it open. He put Luke inside.
That's right.
Yeah,
you're right. Han was. That's right, because he kept him in there. On that. Okay.
And I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
That's funny you went right there, because that's the first thing I thought when I read that. I thought of Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah. So as in true mama's boy fashion, though, despite this mother of his. Look, I don't care about you. I don't care about your hygiene. I don't care about school. You need to work on the farm. That's why you're here. That's why we birthed you. He was still that mama's boy, like strongly attached to his mother, like Norman Bates-ish.
Yeah, that seems to be a theme with a lot of these stories. We talk about our boy Ed Gein, which maybe will come up later, but very similar, where the father, you don't really hear much about the father.
Nope.
Almost not much there. And then it's all mother stuff, and then obviously the brothers and sisters or whoever else, but yeah, crazy stuff.
That's messed up. So this poor kid, there's a story of him in his youth that really struck me as I was reading this. It's just so sad. So maybe you don't. So when you're in the farming biz, when that's your life, people like me can go to the farm show and you can see all these animals and calves and cows and horses and chickens and whatever and goats and sheep. I particularly fancy the goats.
Right.
Like, I love goats, man. Dude, I will spend most of my farm show time in the goat section.
Is that what the screaming goats are about?
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
Little gift Zap gave me. Or gave to the kids, actually.
That's right. The screaming goat.
The screaming goat.
But this guy, as a kid, so he's 12 years old. So Robert at this point is 12 years old. Robert, a.k.a. Willie, is 12 years old. They had gotten a calf. They had gotten a calf that was going to become a cow to do whatever on the farm. Now, when you're a farmer, you do not grow attached to these things. These things are money.
It's kind of like an unwritten rule, right? That
Correct. Like, these things aren't pets. These things are inventory. Do not get attached to the animals. Well, this poor kid did. So they had this calf, and he raised it like a pet. He came home from school one day looking for his pet calf, and he asked his old man where it was. Now, here comes this tormenting piece of shit dad of his, and he said, oh, go check the barn. I think I saw it in the barn. Oh. So the kid goes to the barn, and he finds his pet calf, what he thought was his pet calf, just slaughtered. Guts out, just hanging upside down. Dude, that's kind of traumatizing.
I would say. Yeah.
I say that as a non-farmer, and I don't like to see any kind of cruelty or beating or death to animals or shit like that. To be clear, I'm happy to eat all of them.
As am I, yeah.
But I don't need to see that shit how it happens.
I do not either. And you got to think with this kid, like, we kind of know already about his childhood in school. Probably not a lot of friends because of it, and he...
Dude stank.
Yeah, and he's stinky. He grows attached to this animal, becomes like probably his best friend. So stinky. He becomes attached to this animal. It's probably like his best friend.
Sure.
And gone. So yeah, I could see where that's another strike against him,
This guy does not have, every element of success is slowly dwindling away.
There was also a mention that I think the mother offered, because he wouldn't talk for days after this, that the mother offered him like $20, like, hey, here's $20, we'll go get another cow or calf, and to try to make things better. And I think the father even made a comment about eating the cow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, we'll have for dinner or whatever like that. And of course the kid's not going to take
no, man.
That,
I'm not going to eat what I thought was my pet. Like, I loved that calf.
Yeah.
You asshole.
The dad was kind of hardcore, I guess.
Dad's a jerk.
Sounds like it.
He's a real douche.
Yep.
All right. Well, now as we already have this set up for failure, what we think is a setup for failure, we now move on into Robert's formative years. So Robert, as you can imagine, he never dated. And think about it, there's no woman in their right mind who's going to be attracted to a guy who never wore clean clothes, constantly stunk of manure, dirt, and dead animals. So at the age of 13, going on 14, Robert dropped out of school and took a job as a butcher to supplement his part-time job working on the family pig farm.
Right.
This lasted for close to 7 years until he quit his butcher job, a butcher's apprentice,
Right.
And began working full-time on the family farm. So by now he's like 20, 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
His father died in 1978. His mother died in 1979. This left the farm to Robert, his younger brother David, and his older sister Linda. P.S. He had an older sister Linda who'd been whisked away from the farm at a very young age. I guess at that point, I think it was the mother who really insisted, like, look, this is no place for
her
for a girl, despite me being a woman who happens to look like a man because I got a goatee.
Right.
And I stink like a man. We don't want, let's let this girl grow up clean and nice.
Right.
So, okay, both parents died by 79, and now the farm belongs to all three. Life was soon to change for Robert and his siblings. And soon, I mean, give it 10 years or so, 10, 15 years. Now, this 40-acre farm, purchased in 1963 for 18,000 Canadian dollars, had increased in value over time.
Of course.
So, and that's just real estate.
Yep.
I mean, hey, God bless you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, that's a good biz. It's tough to lose money in real estate.
Very hard to, yeah.
So between 1994 and 1995, the three siblings had sold portions of the farm to developers for like a townhouse community, an elementary school, and a local park. Mm-hmm. Now, all in, Robert and his siblings received over 5 million Canadian dollars as a result of those sales, and they still held on to 14 acres of that original farm after the sales. So essentially, they parceled off 26 acres for a little over $5 million.
And kept 14 for
kept
themselves.
14.
So they still got a decent amount of land. And to give you an idea, so this is like suburban Vancouver, which is a big metro area. And of course, that area is growing and growing and growing. So the area where they were at, Port Coquitlam, I guess how we say that, 1951 roughly. He was born in 49. So around 51, they have a population number of about 1,312. So by 1996, about a year after they had sold, that population ballooned to 46,682. This is according to
That's incredible.
Yeah, the census there. So you can see the growth over that time. And of course, that's why that real estate went through the roof.
I know Matt and I saw that growing up. I mean, between where he and I lived, there was countless acres and acres of cornfields, and sometimes they'd switch it up to be this field or that field or the other field. It's now all houses.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm talking miles of it is now houses.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens. But you can't turn down money sometimes. It's just kind of like you're set.
Well, it's interesting to think. So as the population grows, I always think to myself, well, wait a second. As the population is growing and you're doing away with all this farmland, you're reducing the means by which food is grown as the population is increasing. Aren't we going to run out of food? Answer, no. There's so much, farming has gotten so much more efficient.
You can do it in like a smaller area.
You can squeeze a lot more stuff out of a lot less dirt. Mm-hmm. Hell, let alone greenhouses, hydroponic farming. I mean, there's all kinds of shit out there.
Right. And also back to that, when he was younger and went to be an apprentice. So when the parents had all that land and they decided to, I guess, purchase it to expand their pig farming. Mm-hmm. They were sending a lot of their meat away to be butchered and stuff. And the mother decided, like, you drop out of school, go learn to be a butcher. We'll do everything in house.
Yep, we'll save the money. Yep.
You save the money and we'll make more money. We're going to slaughter more animals and we need somebody here to do it. So that was kind of her pushing him into doing that.
Yeah.
Like, well, and then he, obviously went off, you said 7 years he did it.
Yeah.
And, obviously became very good at it.
Dude, that's a serious thing, not for nothing. Like we've talked before about trades, right? And just working with your hands and having that ability and knowledge to be able to apply. And it's swiftly dwindling.
Right.
Like we're running out of plumbers and carpenters and electricians and you name it. Like nobody thinks that's a good thing to do anymore. Everybody just wants to, I don't know. Everybody wants to be an influencer, or whatever the hell they want to do.
A podcaster,
or even worse, a podcaster.
Right? No,
who the hell wants to do that?
No, I know what you mean, though.
So the butcher trade, I mean, that is a skill. So when I was in college, I worked while I was going to school, I was working at Giant Foods, and at the time, Giant was still getting whole sides of beef. Now they get everything vac packed. It's already cut up for you. They don't have to do shit. Right. I mean, they'll get let's say a whole ribeye that they'll chop down. Ooh,
Right.
Don't work too hard.
You're just working a slicer at that
That's
point.
right. That's right. Carnes, I think still gets whole sides, but so I'm sorry as I'm drifting on that. So there was a dude there. He was an old army guy, but just a miraculous butcher. He was he worked on he was in the I forget which war. I want to say Nam. If not Nam, he might have been working in Korea.
Okay.
Working in Korea. He might have been in the Korean War.
Yeah.
But was on a boat at the time, and he was the one of the cooks. So he could take a whole cow and cut that thing down. I mean, cut it down, grind it, chop it, do whatever. 40 minutes.
Wow.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's a talent.
That is incredible speed. Yeah. Absolutely incredible speed. I wish I could be a butcher, but again, you learn a trade like that, you can really apply that and
you become valuable. Yeah.
Well, hopefully valuable enough to save money for the pig farm and cut up the pigs in house.
Right. I mean, yeah. Why send it off when you can do it yourself and keep all that money in house? It's just going to make their money grow. So it made sense that she kind of pushed him in that direction.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting with she. So, we've talked already how Robert just stank. Like he just stank. He actually had an almost instinctual fear of showers. It's like he grew up afraid of showers, absolutely afraid of showers. This was actually, fun fact, a learned behavior he got from his mother, who insisted that he only ever take baths. If and when you do decide to clean yourself.
Just baths.
Just baths, never shower.
I wonder why.
No idea. That's just a little subtlety.
Yeah.
Oddity.
Interesting.
She's a funky lady.
I'd say.
Oh, so you and I were talking before we started recording this. You actually prompted me to search out this
a side story,
little side story. But if you could you please, Dave, could you enlighten us on the Dave Pickton? So this is Robert again, everyone. We're talking about Robert Pickton,
right?
But Dave found a fantastic sidecar of Robert's brother David and an ill-fated driving experience. Do tell, Dave.
Yeah, so I thought initially that this was Robert and that did this, but no, it was his brother David. So it was on October 16th, 1967. The brother David at the time was 16 years old and was out driving around in the family truck, joyriding and stuff. And it was around 7:40 in the evening that night. He hit a 14-year-old boy named Tim Barrett.
Okay.
Along the side of the road. Tim Barrett's parents later that night, were calling around like, hey, when did Tim leave the house? Where's he at? Nobody knew where he was at. Well, this Dave had hit him with the truck, went home, told the parents, Mom, Dad, I just hit a kid on the side of the road. I don't know what's going on. The mother said, just relax. We'll go take care of it. Told him to take the truck to a local mechanic, fix the dents and all that. The mother supposedly went out to the crime scene where the boy was still alive, rolled him down into a nearby mud puddle.
Yeah.
And so this story didn't come out till obviously much later, but that mechanic, when the boy went there, this David, who's Willie's brother with this truck to repair it, he was kind of like, why are you coming here in the middle of the night?
Right, dude. It's going it's 8:00, man.
Yeah. Like to repair this truck that's already beat the shit.
Thursday night football's coming on. What are you doing?
Right. So he, I guess, knocked out some of the dents for him and then sent him on his way. Didn't paint it, correct? And
yeah. So that's right. He had actually asked, hey man, look, I need you to do 3 things for me. I need you to bang out these dents. I need you to change out the busted turn signal that broke because I hit this kid.
Right.
And number 3, I need you to paint it. And here's the bucket of paint. And when I say bucket of paint, they had already, this is a 1960 truck, 1960, year 1960 truck. Like it's old as shit.
Right.
This is 7 years old and it's gotten beaten being used on a farm. They had already painted it once or twice already with house paint.
House paint, yeah.
So the mechanic said, all right, look, man, I'll bang out the dents. I'll change the turn signal, but for damn sure, I'm not painting it with fucking house paint.
Right. So it was just an odd exchange. And then the next morning, the mechanic happened to have been listening to the radio or watching the TV, I forget which one it was, and saw the story come across about a hit and run. His boy dead on the side of the road, and immediately thought of what happened the night before, contacted authorities. They went and checked everything out, saw the truck. Nothing came of this.
No.
Like, there was no charges or anything like that. I just don't understand. I didn't really find any real explanation of why there wasn't.
I don't get that. So I mean, so they did, I don't want to say like a full-blown autopsy,
Right.
but you find a body in a swamp, the equivalent of a very shallow swamp, extremely shallow swamp. You're going to try to figure out, like, how's there a dead kid here? So the coroner took a look at the kid, checked his whatevers. And again, as you had said, Dave, this kid was still alive. So the actual cause of death was, in fact, asphyxiation. I mean, he died from drowning.
Right.
Now, at the same time, he had also had a fractured skull with like significant like brain trauma and a fractured pelvis. Now, despite that having happened, the kid still died of
drowning. So
that's like having AIDS, but you die of pneumonia. Like nobody dies of AIDS.
Right. It's whatever that caused.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So he could have drowned on his own blood, maybe, or you know, who's to say? But it did kind of set the tone for, like you spoke about earlier, where family comes first, the farm comes first. Yep. If my son gets convicted of murder, that's free labor that's going now. You know what I mean? Maybe not free labor, but cheap labor.
And and that's the thing. I lost what I imagine is supposed to be the most trustworthy worker I have, is my own blood here.
Right.
My own kid.
Yeah. So I could see where it's in her best interest to kind of sweep this under the rug.
Yep.
It's just, it just would be crazy to me to think, but people do irrational shit.
Clearly.
You know.
Let's see. Oh, so fun fact. So again, the father died in 78. Mother died in 79. By now, Robert was 30.
Yeah, he was born, 50?
Born in 49.
49, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. October something of 49. December something of 49?
Yeah, so you're right, about 30.
October something of 49. So yeah, so he was about 30. When the mother died, he went out and bought a trailer, the equivalent of just a single wide. Put that on the farmstead, on that property. Like it's like, again, it's like a Norman Bates thing. When his mom died, he had to get out of that house. Robert. Mom's dead. I can't live here. Like, my mom is gone. I can't live in this house. So he moved out. David kept the house. David was 2 years younger.
Okay.
So yeah. So Robert bought a trailer. Could not live in that same house where his mother died.
But lived on the property. So I could see where, even though it's not really a change of scenery, it is, because now the walls are different. You're working up in a different bedroom. You do have 14 acres to deal with. Yeah. So why not just stay there? So I can see that. But yeah, you're very much like Norman Bates. This whole story reminds me of that, Ed Gein, all that stuff, which is all based on the same.
This Robert loved his mother. All right. So let's see. Parents died 94, 95. All right. Now along comes the roaring 90s. With their newfound wealth, the two Pickford brothers swiftly took a liking to partying. In 1996, Robert and his brother David created a nonprofit organization known as the Piggy Palace Good Times Society. Now, the stated purpose was to, quote, orchestrate, facilitate, manage, and conduct special events, functions, dances, shows, and exhibits on behalf of service and sports organizations, as well as other commendable groups. So that's about as broadly brushed
as you can get.
Yeah. I've worked with nonprofits. When you put things out as like mission statements and stuff like that to get a like nonprofit status, you can do really broad stuff, but there are times where they're going to start questioning like that. Come on, man.
Is this a cover for something?
Yeah, that's right. So for nearly 2 years, rave-like parties were held on the grounds of the farm and in the former slaughterhouse that had actually been converted into a dance hall.
Oh, wow.
So all sorts of folks attended these parties, including the locals, biker gangs, and prostitutes. Now, I'm talking like Hell's Angels.
Oh, wow, yeah. Some dangerous dudes in there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just imagine who goes to a pig farm to go hang out at a rager.
Yeah, that's some like shit you'd see in a movie, like a horror movie or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So in March of 97, simultaneously now, again, you've got biker gangs, you got drugs like crazy, you got prostitutes. Robert was charged with the attempted murder of a woman named Wendy Eistetter, whom he'd reportedly attacked while she was at his house at one of those ragers.
Right.
Now, these charges were ultimately dropped because Wendy was a drug-addicted prostitute, and her drug use prevented her testimony from being believable. That is to say, like the The prosecution said, Jesus Christ, like, the defense, Robert's defense is going to say immediately, who's going to believe the word of some cracked out prostitute
Right.
who, oh, by the way, is not only a cracked out prostitute, but knows that this guy, Robert, is now a millionaire, which he is.
Oh, yeah. So they're a target. Yeah. For the
Sure.
money. Yep.
So the prosecution didn't even bother. They just let it go. Now, after a New Year's Eve rager on December 31st, 1997, the Piggy Palace was shut down by local authorities. Now, so oddly enough, one can't maintain a dance hall and a party palace on an area zoned for farming in Canada.
You can't do both of those.
No, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, back to that Wendy. So I watched a good documentary on Prime called The Pig Farm, and it's all about this whole case. And they recount her story on there, kind of like reenacted, I'd say. And she talks about meeting up with him and going back to this farm, and they, do their thing. She's going to make a phone call, to call her boyfriend, and they're staying at her boyfriend at the time. They're staying at a local hotel, and she's paging through the phone book, and she said she felt like somebody hovering around her.
Sure.
And it was Willie behind her,
AKA Robert.
Right. And he's hovering around her and caresses her hand, and she's looking down, what the hell's going on? And he slaps handcuffs on her.
Nice.
On her way into the house there, she had noticed a knife laying on the counter. So they have a struggle there. Once the handcuffs are on, she's trying to fight him off. She gets a hold of the knife, and they go back and forth, stabbing each other. Now she wounds him, and he stabs her, and back and forth. And
That's crazy.
She somehow gets away. Now she's on this farm property out in the middle of, wherever, 14 acres.
Sure.
Ends up on a nearby road. Sees a set of headlights coming. And she's like, oh my God, is this him? Or is this hopefully a stranger, or somebody that can help me, not him? And as the car approaches, she sees it's not a pickup, it's a car. And she's waving down this car with a knife,
right,
and bloody. And these people in the car are like,
hell no.
Yeah. Would you pick somebody up like that? You got to be thinking.
If they would drop the knife, I would.
Right. So the couple that's in the car are recounting this story on the documentary. And they're like, I didn't really, the wife was like, I didn't want to let her in the car until I saw the handcuffs. So I figured if she has handcuffs on her, the one arm, she was probably, being restrained. They decided to let her in the car they get her in the car, and they call in 911 to have an ambulance to try to meet them halfway, or whatever. They're on their way to the hospital. When they finally do get her to the hospital, they take her in. Willie ends up at the same hospital.
What?
Yeah. With injuries as well.
Sure. Oh, that's right. She was stabbing him too.
Yeah. So he has injuries. She has life-threatening injuries. Obviously the authorities are called, and they come in, and she has her story. He has his story. No, I picked up this prostitute. Things went south. She attacked me. She's telling her story. No, he attacked me. Blah blah blah. They take Willie's clothes, and I guess inside his clothes they find keys to the handcuffs.
Huh.
But through all of this, just because of what you said, her credibility.
She's got zero credibility.
Right.
She's a drug addict prostitute.
I guess they couldn't really do much in court.
Nope.
She didn't die. It was just attempted murder was the charge.
Just attempted.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
He didn't actually get it done. It was just an attempt.
Right. But nothing came out of it. Once again, it's just somebody that story you can't really necessarily believe, I guess, because of their credibility. But it's crazy that she survived that.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. I'm glad for her sake that she did.
Mm-hmm.
So on this Pickton farm, these parties had, tons of drugs, tons of prostitutes, tons of bikers. Again, Hell's Angels were known to attend. There were points at which there were parties that people after the fact have just individually on their own affirmed that the total count of people there approached 2,000.
For one party?
For one party.
Wow.
Now, this is a 14-acre farm, and they're all just not all at the same time in this big slaughterhouse converted now to a dance.
Right.
The club.
The club.
But still, 2,000 people is a lot of people.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Now, also on this farm, just a little aside, there was a 600-pound boar that was basically acted as the guard dog.
Patrolling it.
Yeah. This 600-pound big-ass pig.
That's wild. I know he had a German Shepherd too. They said it was kind of vicious. That would he would feed it raw meat stuff, and the German Shepherd was real violent dog. They said one of them dogs that's just like mean,
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So simultaneously now, let's go on to the topic of a missing persons list, shall we?
Uh-oh.
All right. So Vancouver is 17 miles west of the Pickford farm. There's an area in Vancouver known as Low Track, which is Vancouver's version of Skid Row. Again, this is home to drug addicts, bums, and more importantly, prostitutes.
Right.
Now, while there were always cases of random missing persons relative to the prostitution population in Low Track, a sizable number of prostitutes began to go missing in the mid to late 90s. The number continued to increase until an official search for the missing women began in September of 98. Now, by this time, the list of missing women had grown to over 40. Now, understand, right? So you're talking homeless, prostitutes, just transient people.
Right.
When you're talking in this bum rundown area of town, nobody really keeps track except for, from time to time, maybe you might meet some people. You might make friends. Like I think of that movie with Johnny Depp, From Hell.
Right.
The Jack the Ripper one.
Jack the Ripper, yep.
So those whores, they were buddy. And if one of them starts going missing, they're going to know that. Like,
right.
Hey, where's Betsy at? Oh, I haven't seen her.
What happened, yeah.
So let's see. Oh, so police searched and searched for years, meeting with relatives, gathering DNA evidence, checking every rehab facility, hospital, mental facility, hen house, dog house, outhouse, all of that stuff.
There were some that they were able to, they did go on and move somewhere else.
Absolutely.
There were ones like that, but there are a lot that they didn't have any leads on.
Dude, I saw, as I was reading this, I saw the story of this one chick. She'd had a kid, and she'd had a kid, dropped it off at the orphanage, and then she jetted.
Right.
She was still on this missing persons list 20 some years later. She saw the missing persons list or saw that her name was listed or whatever. She called.
It's like, hey, take me off.
Yeah. She's like, hey, no, I'm still good.
I'm good. Yeah.
But thanks for reminding me about that kid, but I don't want to talk to him. But
right.
yeah, I'm still alive. You don't need to
waste your resources looking for me. Yeah.
I'm not missing.
Yeah.
So let's see where in 98, the number of officially missing was 40. By early 2002, the list had grown to 54. So, I mean, that is just the prostitutes.
And that's just that little area down there.
Correct. This is just a couple of block area of, again, Skid Row, AKA Low Track. Mm-hmm. This is not homeless dudes. This is not drug addict dudes. This is just the chicks. On February 6th, 2002, Robert Pickford, and his brother, were arrested for possession of illegal firearms. He swiftly posted bail and was released. However, based upon what authorities had found on the property at the time of his arrest, a second warrant was issued. And on February 22nd, 2002, Pickton was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder.
Yeah, there's a lot leading up to this, like this actual arrest that they wanted to get this guy. They just couldn't go on his property and search. They knew that there was something going on with this guy, but I guess they just didn't have probable cause. They couldn't catch him with anything.
He already had to be on some kind of radar from that thing with that chick from 97, maybe?
Right. Well, that put them on watch. But they needed to connect some rumors, some street stories that were coming around that they had. These were coming from, in their eyes, unreliable sources, people that were maybe looking to cash in on a reward.
Sure. Let's not forget, this guy went from zero, and I mean, dude, he's a pig farmer, for Christ's sake. He goes from that to now being a couple of times over millionaire.
Not to mention America's Most Wanted, a TV show we're very familiar with back in the day.
Yep.
They got involved and were up there. They were offering $100,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. Now, at this time, they don't know who they're looking for. They just know there's 54 or 40 or 54, whatever the number was at that time.
Women missing.
Women.
Yep.
And they're involved. Vancouver City Police and RC MP are joining forces now, trying to use their resources together to track down. At first, they were like, this is not a serial killer. They were kind of denying it. Then they finally, as time went on, kind of came around to the fact that, hey, maybe we do have a serial killer here. They were trying to maybe connected at the time. Gary Ridgway was the Green River Killer.
Oh, yeah.
In nearby Seattle, which is just south of here. So there were a lot of like possibilities, but inside of it all was this Robert Willie Pickton and these stories people were hearing, about, some shenanigans going on on this property.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting what before we get too into this, or before we, really, drop the bomb here, there's one thing, and this is murder 101, right? If you are going to kill somebody, do not maintain keepsakes.
No, definitely not.
Do not keep their IDs as a trophy. Do not keep their purses. Don't give their purses away to your girlfriend or wife. Do not keep their wallets or their pictures. Like, don't keep their socks. Don't cut off their body parts, and keep those. Like, look, just be done with it.
Just be done. Yep.
You enjoy the memory. You don't need to keep revisiting.
Real quick, back to that too, Zap. I forgot to mention that the guy that turned him in was a Scott Chubb. It was a former farm employee, and he's the one who kind of tipped those cops off.
Sounds like just a disgruntled employee to me.
That's the thing, and they were like, well, maybe he's looking for reward money,
Sure.
but it gave them probable cause to go in and start looking around.
So that's what triggered the gun search.
Right. This Scott Chubb said, hey, look, I can give you something. And like he was looking for probably reward money. And nothing about any murders or anything like that, just his illegal weapons, which in Canada, you weren't allowed to have certain kind of weapons.
Sure.
And you know what I mean? So that's
they're borderline communist up there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Borderline.
But they had their reason now.
Sure.
To go in there unannounced.
That's right. So they go in, and that's right. Yes, that's absolutely true. They go in there, and they get them on the guns, but while they're there, they're searching around old Robert's, single wide. And what do they find? IDs, jewelry, and keepsakes of the two dead, of these two missing chicks that they had been, again, on this missing chicks list.
Right.
So, okay.
What's he doing with those, you wonder?
Yeah. So again, they were arrested on February 6th. They got out on bail. 2 weeks later, the police show back up again with 2 charges of first-degree murder. All right. Now it gets worse. Oh, God. So while incarcerated, Pickton shared a cell with a guy whom he thought was another detainee, just this other, prisoner, whatever.
Right.
Whatever. Unbeknownst to Pickton, the other detainee was actually an undercover cop that was with this task force looking for this growing list of missing broads. So Pickton boasted to this undercover agent that he'd killed 49 women and was hoping to make it 50.
Wow.
So look, I understand, like if you're going into prison, right? Like, again, I can tell you, I am definitely not built for prison.
Me neither. Yeah.
So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell as many lies as I can. Like, yeah, man.
Yeah. Big stand.
I murdered a zillion dudes and I did all this stuff, man. I'm just this psychopath killer dude. I'll knife you in your sleep or some shit like that.
Right.
I'll say anything I can so I don't get, the shit kicked out of me, butt raped,
right?
Whatever happens to, small white guys in prison.
Right.
I don't know. So maybe this guy was just blowing smoke.
You could be.
Could be. Well, but with that little tip and with lightning quickness, the pig farm became the largest crime scene in the history of Canada. All told, law enforcement personnel sifted through more than 380,000 cubic yards of soil, searching for remains and DNA evidence. 380,000 cubic yards. Like,
that's a lot, man.
That is ridiculous. That is an unreal amount of dirt.
Yeah, I'd like to see the visual for that, but I'd imagine it's all 14 acres, if not surrounding area. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like...
I know for my yard, I get 7 cubic yards of mulch delivered each year to spread.
That's a sizable yard, yeah.
7.
Yeah.
380,000 is what we're talking about at this point. All right, so within a matter of months, Pickton would be charged with a total of 27 murders of prostitutes who had gone missing. Not long into their search, authorities' worst fears became a reality when they discovered a bloody wood chipper on the property. Even more gruesome, authorities discovered the two primary means by which Pickton had been disposing of his victims' remains. One way was by virtue of sending the chipped up bodies along with pig guts and entrails to the local rendering plant, where the bits would be converted into a variety of different consumer products like soap, perfume, shampoo, lipstick, like Fight Club. Essentially, It's exactly like Fight Club. But it was also converted into, wait for it, food for farm animals. Farm animals that humans consume.
So right back into
the system. Now, the other way was much simpler. He would feed the chipped up body pieces to the pigs.
Yeah, and we had spoke about that on a previous podcast.
That is bananas.
That is.
So, okay. Understand that by this point, right? Pickton is a millionaire. We've covered this. He's a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Loved partying. Loved having a good time. So, as a millionaire now, in the mid-90s, when a couple $1 million went a hell of a lot more than just a couple $1 million would go now.
Right, yeah.
But still, for a guy that had nothing and now has a couple million and is still living like nothing.
Still has his property, yeah.
It still goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
So he only farmed pigs for fun, like as a pastime at this point. So what gets weird is that the few pigs that he did raise, and by few was, a dozen, whatever, he was feeding those pigs to the guests that would come to those all-night ragers.
So he'd have like a pig roast or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was feeding these dead chicks, chopped up dead chicks to his pigs, and then feeding the pigs to the attendees at his parties.
I'm not shocked.
Dude, we've seen some wild shit.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about movies and stuff and these horror movies and different movies, and we do the Vintage Cinema review, and I've talked about a movie, Motel Hell, that is a very similar premise. Obviously not exactly like that, where they're taking bodies of guests and grinding them up, making sausage out of it. It's just, so these stories you see in movies or stuff you read in books, a lot of times, is based in reality or, similar things happen. Obviously this happened it came out in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yep.
But it's just crazy to think. Now, I had heard a story about a guy in Baltimore that we had covered a long time ago. And there was rumors of him doing something similar, but there was no substantial evidence or anything that they could say for sure. But I believe with this guy, they had solid evidence that they had found on the property that he was.
When you find DNA evidence of 30-some chicks on a wood chipper.
Right.
Yeah. 33 missing women that are on this missing persons list from this 2-block area, maybe, of a city that's 17 miles away.
Well, there was also, because it was a pig farm that they had converted into, obviously a pig farm that they were doing processing on and selling.
Yep.
They had all these freezers and refrigerators, and they had found buckets of meat and stuff in these freezers that they tested, and it tested for being human flesh, DNA and stuff. They found DNA of some of the victims in these freezers mixed in with meat. It was mixed in with pork. They also found skeletal remains of just hands and feet and skulls, which makes sense because they were saying when you would take these remains to these rendering plants, a lot of the other bones in the human body, rib bones and stuff, can blend in with animal carcasses and not look that off, but like a human hand, skeleton of a hand and feet, and
that's going to stick out.
It's going to stick out. So the guy, he was smart enough to know that, you know what I mean? Not to do that, to try not to get caught, but obviously not that smart of a guy. The shit he was doing. I mean, it's just sickening.
So back to that Fight Club aspect.
Right.
But again, so Fight Club, the movie, we're talking about is the group led by Tyler Durden, Project Mayhem. They would go into the local liposuction places, the local plastic surgery places, whatever, life enhancing places, and they would get the fat that was sucked out by liposuction. They would then render that fat and turn that into soap. And that's how they made money. They sold this, boutique-y, super expensive soap to the people that were to the same people that were getting the fat sucked out of their bodies.
Yeah.
So again, that was all that rendering process. So fun fact, Pickton himself was the one that drove barrels of those pig guts mixed with those, dead prostitutes' chopped up bodies to the rendering plant. The plant was located. Now, this is the craziest part, and this is how the Fight Club thing keeps coming into my head. The plant was located. The rendering plant was located just a couple of blocks away from that low track part of town. So there were times. It's just the cycle of life here. There were times where Pickford would pick up a fresh, drug addict prostitute off the streets within minutes of just having dropped off drums of chopped up prostitutes.
Wow. Yeah, and that rendering plan, I guess at the time, he kind of had free reign there. Some of these rendering plans, you could go, if you had access, almost like a storage unit, you could just go in at any time of day or night, whenever it's convenient for you, and you go in and do your dump whatever you need to dump. So it was said that he had free reign. So he would just go on off hours, dump when he needed to dump. And there's nobody there really monitoring what he's doing. Since then, they said that it's changed. Now they got cameras, they got people there, obviously. But there was somebody, I think, that I had read or heard maybe on the documentary, that there was somebody, an eyewitness, that had saw him dumping stuff, and they're used to seeing this because they work there. And there were like charred pieces of meat in with and they thought it was odd because it's not normally something you would throw in to be rendered. Charred pieces of chunks of.
Maybe it was leftover from the night before's pig roast or some shit.
Could be, I guess. They just thought it was odd because you don't normally see it. The stuff that they're dumping is normally, not like that. But they didn't think at the time, didn't think much of it. Just kind of, they noticed it and it was weird. But then later on, obviously, when all this stuff came out, that story came up again. But yeah, being that he had free reign, he could just go, whatever, probably 2 a.m. Oh, let me dump what I got.
Sure.
And then, like you said, right back down to that area.
That is mind-blowing.
It's scary.
Absolutely mind-blowing. All right. The trial, the trail, and the trauma.
Right.
Pickton pleaded not guilty to all 27 charges. Of the 27 charges, 1 was dropped due to inadequate evidence. The remaining 26 charges were split into a group of 6 and a second group of 20. The jury trial on the group of 6 murders began in January of 2007 and lasted until December 2007. So that's 1 year, when Pickton was found guilty of second-degree murder of all 6 victims. The group of 20 charges were stayed and have not yet since been prosecuted, as Pickton had received the maximum sentence possible for the first group of 6. It was discovered during the trial that, I guess this is another funky part. It was discovered during the trial that Pickton would utilize 2 primary means of killing his prostitute prey. First, handcuffing. Then he would, as we had discussed, and he would either stab them or strangle them. Or, for the specialty heroin addict prostitutes, he would give to them syringes filled with windshield washer fluid instead of the heroin they so desperately desired. All right. After a few appeals, and even after making its way to the Canadian Supreme Court, Pickton remained convicted of the 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years, which, given the timeline, would put him at 2032 when he could possibly go on parole. He's currently in a maximum security prison in Port Cartier, Quebec.
Wow. So last I checked, he's still alive too, and he's there.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
let's figure it out. If he was born in 49, let's round up to 50. That puts him at 74 years old.
74 years old. Yep. And that's the thing with these life sentences. I never really knew that till we started doing this true crime podcast. When I heard life sentence, I would think it's for your life, but it's actually 25 years? Is that
so
what it is?
He's for damn sure sentenced to life in prison. However, and look, I'm with you on that.
Right.
Like last time I heard, I thought life was life, but then all of a sudden, what do you mean he got paroled? So he's sentenced to life. However, he is eligible for parole in 25 years from his sentence. So he's eligible for parole in 2032, which means he could get out of prison, which means he's not necessarily in for life.
He could get out at 84 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. He'd be 84 years old. Yep.
84 years. Yeah. It's just insane.
So just a reminder on second degree murder, we, in many podcasts ago, we had discussed the difference between first, second, and third degree. So second degree murder is committed with malicious intent, but it is not premeditated. That is to say, in with regard to premeditated, the murders didn't have evidence of forethought and planning. So by that, it's like, all right, look, I want to kill this person, but I'm not going to think about how to do it.
Right.
They couldn't piece together. Essentially, they knew the guy would go get prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
They knew the guy would kill prostitutes, but they couldn't piece together that he went out to get prostitutes for a particular reason. Does that make sense?
I know what you're saying. Yeah. And they all along, like I said, they were investigating this guy, and they had things on him, but not enough to, go and do a search warrant and really, and then they had like a sting operation going where they were trying to track him and see where he was going, who he's picking up. He must have been aware what was going on because he didn't pick up any prostitutes for like a long time. And then the one time that they said they did pull him over with a girl in the car, it was like a 13-year-old girl who was like the daughter of a friend of his.
Sure.
Which amazed me watching this documentary on him, that he had so many female friends, but a lot of them were prostitutes, drug addicts, people that were in his life because of the benefits of him being rich and having property, a warm place to stay. He would supply. Now, he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, no vices like that. He would bring these girls, party with them, but never do any stuff himself. His thing was obviously the murdering and stuff. But he had a good friend named Lynn, a girl that lived there with him. She actually was with him on the night that he picked up a girl, a prostitute. Mm-hmm. Lynn was in the car, and this is when these prostitutes are aware that girls are going missing.
Sure.
This prostitute looks in the car, and Lynn's recounting this story, and she says the prostitute looked in and was like, "Are you going along?" She's like, "Yeah, I live with him." So she's like, "Okay, I guess it's safe." Got in the car. They go back to Willie's farm, the three of them. The two girls are getting high, doing their thing. And
you know how we do.
You know how we do. And then Willie goes, "Well, which one of you is first?" And the girl that they picked up went back to the room with him. And this Lynn girl went to her room and passed out. For some reason, she said she woke up and she doesn't even know why, like just kind of sprung up and decided to go out and check on everybody, and went down and looked into the room they were in, and the clothes were laying there, but they weren't there. Mm-hmm. She saw a light on outside, and of the little house he was staying in. I guess it was what'd you say? It was like a trailer or whatever. Outside that trailer, I guess, was one of the slaughterhouse buildings, and she saw a light on. She's like, "Well, what's going on over there?" Now, this is her telling the story. She goes out to the light, sees that the door's cracked open, looks in. There's a girl. That girl's hanging on the hook, and he's doing his thing, slaughtering her.
Jesus Christ.
He turns around and sees her there and grabs her and puts her up against the wall. He's like, "You do not say a word about this to anybody." She's like, No, I won't. I promise. She's like, it just came out because she was like petrified.
Right.
And she's like, "I won't say anything. I promise. Like, you, whatever. I'm just here to get high and do drugs and whatever else like that."
I wouldn't be surprised if she used that against him later.
Yeah, she did to blackmail him and stuff.
Oh, shit.
She had mentioned that like later on that she did, but she disappeared then for a while because she was like, she made up an excuse like, "Oh, I'm back with my boyfriend" or whatever, and kind of disappeared for a while. But I mean, after that, obviously she was creeped out by the guy.
Sure.
So this story got around on the streets, and when the Royal RCMP and the Vancouver police brought this girl in, and they were like, "Hey, we've heard this story going around about you said you were there and there was a girl hanging on the hook and he was cutting her up." And she's like, "I didn't tell him that. It's not true." And the guy, the investigator or the policeman or whoever was interrogating her or talking to her, I don't say interrogating, but he was like, she made a comment that he was telling her how, like, "I know when you see a dead body or you see a body hanging, it's something you'll never forget. I'm sure it was like very shocking for you." She's like, "Oh yeah, that would be so gross. The yellow, the fat, the yellow, the blood." And it didn't hit him till later on when she left. Like, well, most people wouldn't know that when you cut a body open, that it's like yellow inside from the fat. And he said it dawned on him like then, like she probably definitely saw what she was describing, but it's just now is not. Obviously, I don't know if at that time she didn't want to rat him out or if she was scared for her own life, but she wouldn't admit to it. So if she would have just told them at that time, this is 2 years before he actually got caught. Right. And in between that time, he killed 11 more.
Dang.
So, but she was telling this story on the documentary, basically like, she finally did admit to it, that she really saw it. But whether or not it was just like because she was scared for her own life, probably.
I think I think it worked both ways. I think one, she was scared, but equally, like I had mentioned, and thank you for corroborating my suspicion. Mm-hmm. I think she saw something that she could milk to the extent of, look, man, I'm getting kind of broke here. I'd really like, $100,000. And if you don't give me that money, I'm going to, rat you out to the cops.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I didn't even really think about that aspect of it, but
conversely, sure, this guy's a real creepy dude and he could find her and he could go kill her. So I don't know which way it went.
Yeah. Well, she did mention that she did blackmail him with that. I think that came up later on. Cause when you said that, it dawned on me. I think it came up later, but yeah, so there were so many occasions where they had stuff on them, but not enough. Now she wouldn't corroborate that story. If she would have at that time, they would have had just cause to go in. But later on, that guy did come around with that illegal firearms and they got what they needed. But very sick individual.
It's interesting. So you said, you've said it a couple of times, RCMP. I'm guessing that's, if I'm putting things together, while I'm no scientist, nor am I a Canadian, Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Yeah.
So that's the Mounties.
Yep. The Mounties. Okay. I guess it's like their version of maybe like, I don't know if it'd be like our FBI or state police, or I don't know, like what.
I think of Mounties almost like marshals, like U.S. Marshals.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know like how they're, because they had the Vancouver police who were like in the city there, and then the RCMP, and I guess they were working separately, and then they finally came together, and it was called Project Even Handed. And that's when they put their resources together and said, let's stop working. You're working over here, I'm working over here. Like, let's put our resources together. And, but they had a profile almost identical to what this guy was. Yeah. Like very early on, and they just didn't put two and two together, I guess, or they just didn't have enough. This one RCMP officer asked, he wasn't even working the case. He was kind of like off on the side, but he had interest in it. And he had asked them, he said, can I go interview this guy? Can I just go talk to him? Just because I just want to see if I can get anything out of him.
Sure.
So he showed up on his property, on Willie's property, and was like, hey, I'm so-and-so with RCMP, announced who he was. He said, I just want to talk to you. Like, what's going on? Like, why are these people saying this stuff about you? And they had a conversation, and Willie kind of alluded to the fact that, these people are trying to get money out of me. They're all making stories up. None of this stuff's true. And the guy was like, all right, well, thanks for your time. And he said when he shook his hand, and we talked to Chief Darrow about this, when he shook his hand, he said he had this feeling come over him, and the way his hand felt, and it was wet, and just kind of like, this guy's guilty of something. Like he just could feel the evil in him.
Yeah.
So I mean, at that point, everybody kind of knew they just were waiting on that opportunity. So
have you seen in your research, did you see any pictures of this farm, like in current?
Yes.
So I should say even in relative current. So I'm saying from 2002 through now. So it is amazing. Again, let's a quick recap. There were 40 acres, 26 of those acres were chopped off. They kept 14. And the 14 that they kept are basically in the shape of a square.
Right.
So this shithole farm, and I mean, it is a shithole of a farm.
It is. The
pictures on this farm, it looks like there are parts of this farm that look like District 9, the movie District 9.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just this ramshackle, awful setup of a couple of outbuildings, half a dozen or a dozen like run down, beat up vehicles, farm implements, whatever, right next to dude's funky ass trailer. Like there's no grass in this area. Like it's just a terrible area surrounded by beautiful townhouses, the park, the elementary school. Yep. So I got to wonder, like, dude, all these years later, 20 years later, does the fact that they unearthed 20 some or evidence of at least 20 some murders that had happened there, doesn't that kind of creep out the neighborhood?
People are living there. Yeah. Did they, I didn't really get too far as current day. Like, is there anything built there? Is it still the farm? Did somebody else buy it? Is it in?
To my knowledge, it's still the farm, because that's what's his name. Another question I had, David.
What happened to him? Yeah.
Whatever happened to David? How is it remotely possible that David wasn't in any way, shape, or form implicated or at anything in this? Like, questioned, like, dude,
your brother was up to this.
You lived on the property with this guy. How would you not know? I don't care how big it is. How would you not know? Like, you were going to these ragers. You knew what the hell was going on.
Right.
How did you not know that this guy was killing these broads?
There wasn't one time that you saw him coming home with a prostitute and put two and two together. Yeah, you wonder about that. But obviously, I mean, they had a hard enough time trying to get stuff on Willie, let alone his brother. I mean, I could see where.
I think so I say all of that. I think David still owns the property.
So they're still living there.
Or I should say it's now split. Oh, no, I mean, so Robert's still alive. He just happens to be in jail.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, Robert's still alive. David's still alive. I'm guessing the older sister's still alive, or younger sister's still alive. Yeah, they still own the property. Why sell it?
Yeah, you think about like the Geen farm, when they found that, they burned it all down, right?
Yeah.
And destroyed it, you know.
Of course. Now, if I were David and Linda, the sister, sure, shit, yeah, Robert's in jail. Why don't the two of us just sell this place?
Get out of here.
Get out of here. Somebody could be done with these memories and all of this stuff. So I haven't looked at it since. I mean, the most recent article I'd seen was maybe 2022, 21 or 22. And the house was, the farm was still there.
Still there. It's surprising me. I should have myself even looked into that. I was just, I mean, there's so much to the story in the meat of it.
Yeah.
No pun intended, but it's just.
I like what you did there.
Yeah. There was so much to cover, like to get into with this guy. I didn't even really think about the current day other than he's alive in prison. But yeah, you're right. The brother, nothing out of all this, but I guess they didn't have enough on him, or he didn't do anything wrong. Maybe he didn't know.
I guess not. I have a subtle denouement to this. There were formal, I don't want to say charges. There were formal hearings, formal internal investigations that went on with the police department, and how they essentially dropped the ball on this. Like you've mentioned a couple of times, like, dude, you could have had him back in 97. Dude, you could have had him back in 2000. Like, who dropped the ball? What went wrong here? And since then, there have been a number of marked improvements in the law enforcement world there in Canada, especially the concept of, look, just because she's a cracked out prostitute,
right,
doesn't mean she's wrong, or doesn't mean she's making it up.
Yeah, you got to investigate.
That's right. Do your job, investigate. Don't just assume just because she might be, down on her luck or she's living a hard life, she might be telling the truth. So listen next time.
Yeah, I can see that where, this probably hopefully changed outlooks on a lot of that stuff. So
in addition to that, you mentioned as well the coordinated effort of the multiple arms of law enforcement, not working in silos, everybody working together. That was another enhancement
that came out of this.
That came as a result of this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, you put your resources together, you get so much more done, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Instead of, especially nowadays with modern technology and everything else. So.
Hey guys, can you wrap it up?
Oh man.
Okay.
That was a quick roughly hour and 10 minutes though. I mean, this was a lot to get through.
And worth it.
Yeah. I mean, missed Matt here to have a little bit of humor, but I don't know with this story, maybe it's would have been for the best.
Yeah.
Not much
it's tough to interject humor into this one. This is a pretty sicko story, man.
And it's current, not say current, but
it's not that long ago.
It's not like Ed Gein was so many years ago.
That's right.
Even Dahmer. I mean, this, I guess, was around the same time of Dahmer, a little bit after, you know what I mean? That was going on, but
I'm reminded in this, I could not imagine. I couldn't wrap my head around a life as a prostitute without a pimp.
Right. Somebody to protect you or look
Correct.
after you. Yeah.
Like this, so look at the chicks that got picked up in American Psycho, right? So these are the same chicks that are getting picked up on Skid Row here, or in Canada, they call it low track.
Yeah.
And in low track. So these are just women walking around. Sure, man, $20, whatever you want, $50, whatever you want, whatever the going rate is. These chicks have no idea what they're getting into.
Right.
They have no idea the background of that guy, whatever. And now I'm thinking, if this Robert Pickton was always a stinky dude, could you imagine being a prostitute and getting into this dirtbags? And again, a guy that smelled like stinky pigs, always had dirty clothes. It's like, shit, God damn. You know what? I'm going to pass on this. I'm going to not eat tonight, but you could drive on there, Stinky.
Yeah, but the strongest air freshener is money. So if he has money hanging out there, and that's the thing. That's the thing. He would always have like a roll of money, and he would break it out in front of these girls. And I mean, they're desperate. You know what I mean? But you're right. I didn't even think about that aspect of a pimp, because how that protects you, because basically that's money to them.
That's
they're like,
correct.
where'd she go? She's earning for me. And they're probably tapped into where they're at all times and stuff like that.
Listen, you think of pimps as being the bad thing in the prostitute relationship, but it goes both ways. Like, they are there to absolutely serve as protection.
You get a percentage, but at the same time,
You're paying for protection.
Yeah,
But
you are.
again, you want to get in the stinky guy's truck and potentially get murdered and chopped up into bits and turned into soap,
right?
or turned into pig feed.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, I'll take the pimp.
yeah, no doubt.
Just
no doubt.
saying.
Yeah,
All right. Well, anyway, we better get listening to the old wife here.
yeah,
And,
she's gonna be pissed.
Heck yeah.
But no, Zab, that was awesome, man. You did a great job writing up. That was a lot to cover.
Great idea. Thanks for coming up with it.
Yeah, we'll definitely be back, obviously, with a vintage cinema review, but after that, back with some more, maybe true crime, maybe Stranger Things, Pennsylvania. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Who's to say?
Definitely, whatever we come up with, we hope you enjoy it. Speaking of which, I say this in the beginning, and I know a lot of you already have, but if you could please go in there, hit that 5-star rating. And on Apple, if you do that written review, it really helps us out. I don't know if some of you maybe in the beginning skip the beginning, get right to the juice of the stories and stuff, but we're really trying to grow this thing. And the more you guys can help and that doesn't cost anything, know, go in, rate, review. We put in a lot of time and effort, so every little bit helps. So Apple, written review, Spotify, just hit that 5-star rating and we'd appreciate it. So anything else, Zab?
I got nothing, man.
All right, my man. Well, I guess that's it for now. So we'll catch you where?
On the flip side. And if we don't see you sooner, we'll see you later.
Peace.
Thanks for hanging out in the Old Dirty Basement. If you dig our theme music like we do, check out the Tsunami Experiment. Find them on Facebook. Their music is available streaming on Spotify and Apple, and where great music is available.
You can find us at Old Dirty Basement on Facebook and Instagram, and at Old Dirty Basement Podcast on TikTok.
Peace.
We outie 5,000.